Hey everyone, Nick Diorbertis here, teaching you financial modeling. Today we're going to be solving the Python Basics lab exercises focused on functions. So the lab exercise I'm talking about is mentioned here in the Going Beyond an Initial Python Script lecture series slides, and the actual exercise is contained within the Python Basics Lab Jupyter notebook. So let's jump over to that. So in that notebook, then we have this functions section, which the three exercises here are what we're going to be covering. So the first exercise asks you to create a function add 10, which adds 10 to whatever the number that you pass to it. So recall that with functions, you must first define the function and then you can use or call the function. So there's always going to be a def statement first to define the function. And we're going to call this function add 10 as is requested. And it's going to take a number as the input. And then this function, it should take whatever the number is and add 10 to it. So the new value is going to be the original past value with 10 added to it. And then we want to actually get that number out of the function, and so we have to return it, so return new value. So then, we execute that cell and you see, nothing has happened here. And so in order to actually see something happen, we would call the function like this with its name and then the parentheses and then the arguments we want to pass to it. So here we add 5, it adds 10 and we get 15. We add 20, we put 25, it adds 10 and we get 35. So it looks like it's working correctly. And then you have this check cell here as well, where you run it and you don't see anything, that means it works correctly. If we had added 11 instead, then we see that we get this assertion error. So if you have something that's incorrect, you're going to get this assertion error. And if everything is working appropriately, then running this cell will do nothing. And so that is enough for the lab solution. The other thing that you usually want to include in a function is a docstring here, so the triple quoted string, and then a description of what it does. So it adds 10 to the pass number. So then going on to exercise 2, we want to create a function multiply, which multiplies the first number that we pass to it by the second number that we pass to it. But we want to have a default of 100 for that second argument. So, fairly similar to the last exercise, but now we're looking at using a default value for an argument. So again, we want to define the function multiply, and it's going to take two numbers here, but here we want this second number to have a default of 100, and so that's why we put equals 100. If the user of the function does not pass the second argument, then it's going to take the default value of 100. So then, the result here is going to be x times y, and we want to return that result. So that's the function, then we can test it out. Of course, running the check cell, we don't get any errors, so it did work. But just, for your own purposes, you might want to try just running it with some example inputs. We put in 2, and we get 200. So we can see that it must have taken 2 and multiplied it by the default value of 100. But then if we do pass that second value, then it's going to use whatever value we passed. So now it's just multiplying those two numbers. And you can also specify this by putting the argument name as well. That does the same thing. But what that allows you is if you have other arguments in here, you know, here we just added an a argument. It's not even actually being used in the calculation. So if you just call the function now like this, you're getting 200 because it's taking the default value of y. But here, then you can pass y equals 10, and it will put that value for 10, ignoring and taking the existing value for a, because you specifically targeted y for this optional input. So then coming to exercise 3, this is just about checking to make sure that you have a docstring for your function and you know how to write docstrings. So if we create this hasdoc function, and here it doesn't matter what the function does, so I'm not even going to give it any arguments. And we want to have a docstring, and this is going to be my docstring. And then we can just return, let's just return 47. That'll be what the function does, it just returns 47. So then we can see we run this, and we indeed don't get any errors, whereas if we had left this out, then we do get an error. So this came through correctly. And you know, you don't really have to worry about what this code is doing. This is a little bit more advanced, but this is a way that you can you know, retrieve the docstring from a function. But of course, you know, you already have the Jupyter shortcuts of using the question mark, and that will display that, or in the parentheses holding shift and pressing tab, and that will display that docstring as well. So that completes the lab exercises on Python Basics dealing with functions. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.